A group of students decides to take a break from studying and goes on a snowboarding trip. Among them are the couples, Jill and her boyfriend Derek, Maddie and his girlfriend Bree, as well as the friends, Todd, Philip, and the young Allison. Bree decides to film the trip, but Allison does not like that idea and asks her to stop, and Jill notices that her friend is not well. During the journey, the group spots a patrol car stopped in the middle of the road, and they immediately think they are screwed. But when they approach, the officer warns that a truck overturned further ahead, and the roads are closed. Jill asks how long the road will be blocked, and the officer replies about an hour. The man asks where the young people are going, and they answer they are going to North Berkshire. The officer says the best choice they can make is to return via the 7th and go around from there. Jill asks the distance, and the officer responds it is 80 kilometers, discouraging the group with no option. They go to a nearby gas station to decide what to do. Jill and Allison go to the bathroom and talk about Bree, and Allison shows discomfort with her presence. While Jill waits for Allison outside, she sees something moving in the back of a pickup truck. She approaches to check and finds the carcass of a bear inside the store. Derek tries to convince Philip to return to the team. Also inside, Maddie talks with Bree, and the girlfriend says his friends hate her, but Maddie says they just don't know her. Bree notices a local guide, and they discover that region has a history of witch trials. Maddie asks what that woman did, and Bree jokes, saying maybe she lay with the devil. They decide to take the guide, and as they leave, a local man watches them. Allison is still in the bathroom when the lights start to fail, and the door becomes locked. A mysterious figure with 3 faces appears in the mirror. Allison tries to leave and calls for Jill, but gets no answer, and this leaves her even more nervous. Jill is still looking at the bear carcass when the owner arrives and asks if she needs help. Jill says she thought bears hibernate in winter, and the man answers she is right, but that one did not. Jill also says that spring claw traps are illegal in that state and tries to prove it with her phone, but there is no signal. The man asks her to research recent attacks in that region. Then he explains why bears are walking in winter and says that cell phones are messing with animals' ecosystems. The bears go out in winter thinking it is spring, but do not find food, and the men who work in the forest end up becoming their food. Jill loses patience and says the animals are suffering, and at that moment her boyfriend arrives to stop her. Then they hear Allison screams in the bathroom and run to help her. Jill apologizes to Allison, and everyone returns to the car, and Maddie asks what the plan is. Todd says he asked for information and discovered an alternate and faster route. They are a bit suspicious, but decide to follow the route, and as they leave, the hunter from before watches them again. On the way, Philip sends a message to Jill and asks when they will tell Derek. She sees the message and prefers not to reply. Maddie and Bree soon spot the sign for the witch trials region they saw in the guide. Bree decides to tell the rest of the group. She recounts that some disadvantaged women in the region fell, and they were labeled witches by a local priest, thus giving rise to an endless slaughter of women. The group pays no attention, and Maddie even jokes about the situation. They soon reach the road, but it is closed with a no passing sign. And they ask Todd if that is really the road, and he confirms it is, but the rest of the group does not want to get lost. Todd says he knows the way and says that a little further there is a service road and then a hill. That is where they are going. They have a small argument about whether to go or not, and so as not to be called cowardly, Jill agrees to go, and Derek quickly breaks the chains and continues the journey. While the group celebrates, we see the hunter again, and on the car radio, a warning is issued about the risk of a big snowstorm, but he ignores it and leaves the car with his gun and walks into the forest. Back with the group, they have already been walking for hours and have not arrived, and Philip complains about this, but Todd assures they are on the right path. Meanwhile, Allison still seems to remember what happened in the bathroom and sees a crow on a branch. The crow seems to speak to her, but she does not understand and turns to asking Bree what it said. But the woman answers she said nothing, and Jill asks if she is okay, and she replies yes. Jill turns to look at the road and ends up exchanging glances with Philip, which Derek notices. The man walks to his trap in the forest. He manages to shoot a large wolf, and when he is returning to the car, he notices that the chains on the cursed road are broken and concludes that the young people ended up entering the forest. In the forest, Jill wakes up because the young people are arguing with Todd because they have been following the same path for hours. Todd asks them to trust him and just follow and turn right. But Derek does this and realizes they are going in circles. Derek is angry and asks if anyone has signal, but almost everyone answers no. And Jill responds that she has a little signal, and Derek asks her to open the GPS. While they argue, we notice Allison is feeling very unwell, and Jill says she lost the signal, and Maddie asks her to check Allison's phone. And when she does, Allison quickly wakes up and slaps her, saying to be careful. She apologizes and says she doesn't know why she did that, and Jill forgives her. Philip approaches. Jill and Derek, noticing this, becomes distracted and they end up crashing the car. Everyone manages to be okay, but when Derek starts the car, he notices it is stuck in the snow. Derek is furious and blames Todd for all of that. Maddie asks him to calm down, but this does not help. Jill gets out of the car to check, and Derek goes with her, and she tells him that they will have to free the car. Todd says he will manage to free the wheel using the snowboard, and Derek asks him to be quick. Jill is acting strange, and Derek notices this, but does not ask anything in the car. Allison is still strange, staring at complete nothingness, and tells the group they will not get out of there. Bree asks what she is talking about, but has no time to hear the answer because Derek calls everyone to push the car. The group starts working together to remove the vehicle. Allison continues staring at the forest, frightened. And when Jill asks if she wants to go to the bathroom with a look of astonishment, she refuses immediately. Jill ends up going alone into the woods, and while answering nature's call, starts to hear noises coming from the trees. The sounds lead her to a strange tree that captures her attention. As she tries to approach, Philip appears and startles her. He tries to kiss her, but Jill says that this is not the place for that, and he insists, saying there is no danger. Then he asks again when she will tell Derek, and Jill promises to talk after the trip, admitting she very much wants to be with him. At that moment, Derek calls for her and Jill leaves the place, while Philip stays a bit longer. He too hears strange noises and becomes apprehensive, sensing something is lurking. Jill returns to the car and asks about Allison, but no one knows where she is, which makes her start to scream for her friend. Soon they enter the forest looking for her, and find her kneeling before the carcass of a brutally killed elk. The group is startled and Jill tries to approach, but Allison touches the animal and it is still warm. Jill asks if she is okay, but the girl does not answer and vomits. Afterwards they return to the car and questioned by the group. Maddie explains they found a mutilated animal, leaving everyone tense, but Jill quickly changes the subject. Derek explains that only one will drive, while the others push. Asks if Allison is well enough for that, and she replies yes, the plan works. But when Derek bends down to tie his shoe, Allison tries to run him over. He manages to dodge and furious goes after her, trying to assault her, but the group stops him, and in the scuffle he ends up pushing Jill. She asks that they leave and everyone agrees. However, Philip, upon checking the wheels, finds they are destroyed. Jill remembers that the sun will soon set, and the cold will increase, while Allison cries, saying she wants to leave. Derek asks everyone to check their phones for signal, but no one can. He recalls that Jill had signal earlier, and she throws the device to him. Upon grabbing the phone, Derek sees Philip's message and decides to go look for signal, calling him to accompany, and Philip hesitates but ends up going. While Philip searches for signal, he is surprised by Derek, who pushes and confronts him. Showing the message, Philip falls silent, and Derek says he should go confront Jill, but Philip, remembering the earlier event, taunts, saying that would only make things easier for him. Derek, irritated, states that when they return, he will kick him off the team and make him lose the scholarship. Philip retorts, threatening to reveal the incident involving Allison, and Derek, confused, asks what he is talking about. Then Philip mentions Allison's video and claims that Derek was present that night. The guy reveals that Derek's friends talk too much. Derek defends himself, saying he did nothing, but Philip replies that it was precisely that omission that was the problem, because as team captain he did not stop anything and even hid everything from Jill. Philip says they need to focus on getting out of there first, because if they don't they will die frozen. Derek, with no options, agrees, and they return to the car. Todd asks how much fuel they have left, and Derek replies only a quarter of the tank, warning they have at most a few hours. Jill asks the distance to the main road, and Todd says it is close and they could go back on foot. Maddie considers that a terrible idea and suggests waiting for help, which annoys Derek, who remembers that no one knows they are there. Jill asks if there is any flares, and Derek says there might be in the trunk, asking her to check upon looking. They discover there is nothing useful, only useless items, and Derek complains. He didn't know they would spend the holidays lost. Todd says someone needs to go for help, but no one wants to go, risking freezing to death. Realizing the blame is his, Todd offers to go, saying he will be back. Soon the friends say he cannot go alone, and Maddie offers, but Bree refuses to stay alone with his friends. Then Allison decides to go with him. Jill tries to convince her, but she is determined. The two prepare to leave and say goodbye to the friends. During the night, everyone almost freezes and is worried about the friends. A noise echoes from outside, frightening Bree, Philip, and Jill, who had already heard noises before. Joe suggests it might be an animal, partially calming the group, but suddenly something hits the car, scaring everyone, and they hear heavy steps in the snow approaching the vehicle. Bree asks Derek to turn off the headlights, and everyone locks the doors in silence. Another hit strikes the car, and Derek decides to get out, but Jill stops him, and Bree asks what is happening. They see something in front of the car, and when they turn on the lights, find it is Allison, which frightens Bree. The young people quickly get out to help her and bring her inside. They use the phone to illuminate and find blood with no visible wounds. Bree suggests it could be someone else's blood, and Maddie worries about his brother Todd, who hasn't returned. Maddie notices something in Allison's hand, and upon looking, realizes she is holding some strands of hair tightly. Maddie wants to go out to search for his brother, but Allison begins to have a seizure. Jill cannot hold her being hurt and asks the others for help. They ask if Allison takes any medication, and Jill answers she does not know, asking Bree to look in her bag. Bree finds anxiety medication, and they decide to give it to calm her. When Bree puts the medicine in Allison's mouth, she starts to bite her fingers, leaving everyone terrified. Bree manages to free herself, but impales her hand on an iron in the trunk, and upon looking realizes some fingers are injured. Philip asks her to stay still, but in shock from the injuries, she ends up freeing herself and worsening the bleeding. She begins to lose a lot of blood, and Philip asks Maddie for help to staunch it, but Bree faints in the process. Maddie asks if she is dead, and Philip replies maybe she just fainted from the shock. Derek accuses Allison of attacking his girlfriend, and Jill tries to defend her, and Maddie talks about violent attacks. Jill asks what he is talking about, and Maddie mentions the pamphlet, saying that place is cursed, while Jill asks for calm. Have a nice day, my viewer. Don't forget to subscribe. Jill tries to appeal to his injured girlfriend, but the young man only wants news of his brother and goes in search. Jill returns to the car and asks about Bree, and Philip says the bleeding stopped. Jill states they need to get Bree out there, and Derek agrees, saying they must remove that crazy woman. Jill explains she is not talking about Allison, but Derek asks if they really will pretend nothing happened, and that Allison did not try to kill him too. The young woman tries to defend the friend, but even Philip is on Derek's side and asks whose blood it is. She answers she does not know and suggests something might have attacked them, but Derek wants to put Allison out, and Jill asks if he is kidding. She asks for Philip's support, who replies he does not agree with the idea, but admits something is really wrong. Jill insists her friend is sick, but Philip recalls his brother also had seizures, only not like that, and when he was like that, they said he was possessed. Jill asks if he is joking, and Derek continues, insisting about where Todd is and whose blood it is, wanting to eject Allison. Jill questions his earlier actions, attacking Allison and crashing the car on purpose, but Derek just says it was not on purpose. Jill continues fighting, saying Derek is crazy, and that it is better to tie him up. Derek seizes on her idea but uses it against her, agreeing only to tie Allison's hands. Meanwhile, in the forest, Maddie continues looking for Todd and finds blood tracks. He begins to follow the tracks and screams desperately for his brother, but the flashlight starts to fail. He takes a few steps back, sees the same crow from before, tied to a tree, and wonders what that is about. Frightened, he steps back and falls into a bear trap, getting his legs stuck. Maddie tries to free himself, pulling the chains, but notices they are tied to the tree. In the car, Derek ties Allison, who begins to speak that she saw him, but when asked what she is talking about, she does not reply. Philip goes out to get ice to reduce swelling, while Jill finds the earlier pamphlet. Taking advantage they are alone, Derek confesses he already knows about her and Philip, and says he lied about the video, and also to the coaches. When Philip returns to the car, Jill starts acting strange with him, leaving him confused. Derek becomes desperate, realizing the gas is running out, and the heater stopped working. Maddie still tries to free himself from the trap, screaming in pain as the wound worsens. He hears wolf howls and struggles to grab a stone and free himself. After many attempts, he manages to free himself and drags himself through the snow. In the car, the group looks for clothes to warm up. Philip opens a can of food and hands it to Jill so they can make a mini fire, but she can't light the matches. The guys tell her to calm down, and finally Jill manages to light the candle, buying some time soon. They hear groans coming from Allison, putting everyone on alert. Meanwhile, Maddie tries to return to the car, but is still trapped in the trap. He sees a light deep in the forest and thinks it's his brother, so he drags himself there. Upon arriving, he finds only the flashlight on the ground, and further ahead, sees something that makes him start to cry. In the car, the noises from Allison do not stop, and Derek gets irritated, asking Jill to do something. While they argue, Allison talks alone, saying she cannot save them and that everyone will die. Philip asks who she is talking to, and Derek, irritated, says she is talking to them and leaves the car to try to grab her, but Jill prevents him using a knife. Jill asks Philip for help, who again agrees with Derek, and he takes her knife. Jill then hears the sound of Todd's phone coming from the forest and decides to go after it, but Philip says he hears nothing. He stays taking care of Allison, but she begins to bang her head against the window, and Philip, scared, decides to follow Jill. Bree wakes and realizes she is alone with Allison, who grunts and bangs her head against the window, leaving Bree frightened. She tries to grab an iron to defend herself, but when she turns, Allison is above her and her screams are heard by Jill. She tries to return and ends up slipping, and Philip tries to help her, but she refuses, and he realizes Derek manipulating her. Meanwhile, Derek finds Todd's phone in the forest. They manage to return to the car, but the door is locked, and Philip goes out to get the keys with Derek. He tries to use the phone when heavy steps approach. Upon turning, he sees Allison, saying he abandoned her to die. Derek manages to run, but loses Allison from sight, and feeling someone approach, ends up stabbing Philip, who dies. Jill uses the snowboard to break the car window, and upon entering finds Bree dead. She realizes Allison is not in the car, and Derek returns, saying Allison tried to kill him and that the place is cursed. Jill does not believe him and sees blood on him. Asking about Philip, she asks where the screwdriver is, and he answers it must have dropped. The hunter returns to the trap and finds Maddie trapped. Deciding to release him, Derek says she is punishing them, and Jill asks what he is talking about. He reveals he was present the day and didn't know they would do that. Derek begins to take off his clothes, saying he is very hot, and Allison calls for Jill. She arms herself with the iron, while Allison cries outside, asking how she had the courage to do that. Allison goes to Derek's side, and Jill honks the car horn to try to drive her away. Jill tries to convince Derek to run away with her, but he raves and blames himself. She decides to go alone, walking through the forest, asking for help. During the walk, she trips over Philippe's body and cries, but hears a horn in the distance and follows it. The creature begins to chase her, and Jill finally finds Allison. She asks her friend for help and says she just wants to go home. While Allison approaches with the screwdriver, Jill remembers Derek's words and manages to make Allison drop the tool. Upon remembering everything her friend did, Allison begs, saying she did nothing, but Jill ends up killing her. The hunter arrives and fires a warning shot, saying the next will be at her if she does not step away. During the day, the police arrive and find the bodies. Suspecting Jill, the initial officer appears and says he has never seen anything like this, asking if Jill wants to tell what happened. Jill replies she thought Allison was possessed, but the officer does not believe and asks why she would think that. The film ends, suggesting that now Jill is the one who is possessed. Have a nice day, my viewer. Don't forget to subscribe.